It is an art, choosing gladiators. They're usually prisoners of war.
I claim this city for the glory of Rome.
You have something in you. Rage. Never let it go. It will carry you to greatness.
And we're back in Rome with the Gladiator 2, where we find Lucius, which is the little boy from the first part, 16 years later. He's a Numidian soldier, and he faces the Roman army again, trying to conquer Numidia, which they successfully do. Lucius is captured. Nobody knows his identity, obviously. He doesn't know his identity. And he's traded as a slave to become a gladiator in Rome, and that's how he ends up in Rome. But essentially his focus is to exact revenge on General Acacius, I believe is his name, because he manages to kill his wife during the conquering of Numidia. And that is the premise of the film, very much similar to the first part, but that is not a bad thing, isn't it, Baz?
No, not at all, no. And, this film, I have to say, first and foremost, it was great walking into the cinema, and it was pretty much full. Good. I pre-booked my tickets, and I'm glad I did now, because it was full cinema. But yeah, I mean, wow, man, this is Gladiator number 2, sort of similar to the first one, but I don't think anyone would argue that's a bad thing. We've got some great acting. Obviously, Paul Mescal, who's playing Lucius, Marcus Aurelius's son. Maximus Aurelius's son. He does a fine job. I mean, we're talking about, I don't know if anyone watched Normal People, which is where I first saw Paul, display his acting skills, but he does a really cracking job. And this film, man, it gets underneath your skin with the current emperors that are in charge of Rome. Talk about chaotic and chaos leading the show. These two albino-looking chaps are just interested in pure entertainment for their own value, and they don't care who dies for this, and you can see the hatred building up in Lucius's heart, can't you, throughout the whole film.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, the basis, the foundations of the film are very strong. I mean, every single character that we meet in the first 10 minutes, you can see that they have their own motivation, and he's looking for vengeance. General Acacius is trying to sort of bring Rome, make it again the strong city, the famous city, the non-corrupt city that Rome was back in the day. So that's his purpose in the film, played very well by Pedro Pascal, even though not a lot of screen time. His mother, Lucius' mother, played by Connie Nielsen, who played the same character in the first film, is also back, and I thought she was very good too. And then obviously Denzel Washington comes in and steals the show, as he commands the screen literally whenever and he takes such joy in doing it, to be honest, whenever he shows up, which is so good. But I thought about midway through, I thought it's lost its way a little bit and almost sacrificed spectacle for story. What were your thoughts after, midway? We are getting bombarded with a lot of great action sequences, but what about the soul of the film? Is that lost midway through, did you think, or what did you thought?
I'm not too much. No, I have to say, obviously, with the action sequences, I thought, if you look at the first Gladiator, which also had a lot of action, there seemed to be, I think maybe what you're referring to is, I thought there was a bit more soul in the first movie, which this one kind of lacked a little bit. It has to fill some big shoes to, be
big sandals,
sequel. Yeah, big sandals, very good. For me, it didn't quite do that, and I think that might be what you're referring to a little bit. The action, I don't think, was too much. It didn't outweigh, the storytelling, but the storytelling itself just was a little bit. I didn't care too much for Lucius as I did Maximus, if that's fair to say, to give
Correct.
an example.
Yes.
But just on the spectacle of the the action itself, I was really impressed by it, man. I'm not gonna lie, especially the sequence with the flooded Colosseum. With the ships. This was absolutely fantastic. The sharks being in there, and actually you have to think, I'm not sure there's any ever recorded evidence of the Colosseum being flooded for the games, but you kind of had to take with a pinch of salt. Obviously, we've got these chaotic, infringed monkeys. As a hybrid between a dog and a monkey. Again, pinch of salt, because you're thinking there's no recorded history of those species ever existing. But I don't really think that took away anything from the film. Did you?
No, absolutely not. No, I think that's, I mean, we know the director is a master at putting action sequences together well. I mean, remember the Napoleon battle on the lake in the film? That was just simply scary. So that just tells
Brilliant.
you that you know what you're expecting, and and all those scenes, indeed, they're all exactly hitting the spot. And the Paul Mescal's I felt at some point has that intensity that the character needs. So a person that is driven by revenge, when you look in his eyes, he's got that almost like tiny little glimpse of insanity in the eyes, especially when he speaks with his mother, turns out to be, and all of that. He's like, he owns those moments. There are not a lot of them, though. Sometimes it feels like he's disconnected, as in he's not really thinking about the fact that he's lost the love of his life anymore. But when he does, he's acted very well, and I really enjoy that. And that just makes you sort of raises the stakes, but not as strong as, I think it's really rushed. We get to Rome really fast, when in the first one, it takes its time. And when you do get to Rome, you're like, there is a genuine wow moment when you see the Colosseum, and the stakes for that in the first film for Maximus to succeed are really high by the time he gets to Rome. With this film, it felt like, let's quickly get into the arena so that we can start the action sequences.
Yeah.
Did you thought the pace was a bit quick?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. That obviously, I mean, I know this runtime for Gladiator 2, I think 2.5 hours. I'm not sure what the original was. It could have been hitting 3 hours.
It's about the same. Yeah, it's about 2.5 hours.
Is it about the same? Okay, so maybe it used its time more wisely. But yeah, I know what you're coming from. The Colosseum came into play fairly quickly, didn't it? And this kind of takes a little bit of the edge away from what could have been attention to build up to get there. It's like the final frontier, isn't it? That's where all the glory or death's going to happen. Yes. But yeah, that I see where you're coming from a little bit with this.
But let me ask you something else. What did you thought of the music?
Well, they used elements of the first soundtrack, didn't they, in this one? And I appreciated that. It's like, it's a hark back to that. But I have to say, not very impressed. Not very impressed. This first battle sequence between, Pedro Pascal's army and Paul Mescal defending the fort. Yeah. I thought this music was a little bit off for this sequence. I'm not sure what you felt towards this, but the soundtrack didn't hit as hard as the first Gladiator. I wouldn't say it was detrimental to the film, but it didn't seem to have that big, impactful. Embracing the character sort of vibe, wouldn't you say?
Agreed. It had a couple of moments when it was really good, but not the overall epic cultural, soundtrack that the first one had. And this is it's not Hans Zimmer. Is Harry Gregory Williamson, I think is his name, who was an assistant to Hans Zimmer apparently. So, but he became himself a very strong soundtrack composer. But but still, the film. Not an issue with how it was delivered, and I guess it's a film for the ages, I would call it, where spectacle needs to be there to make the 200 million quid or something that was spent on making it. But again, would I ask the question? Let me ask you this question: do you think a sequel was necessary to the first one?
No, I don't think it was. No, but that being said, I don't think this diminishes the first one at all. I don't think it's like what people. I think people will be more well received to this film than they were Joker 2. But that's a different conversation for a different day. Did you think that there was an element of Game of Thrones in Gladiator 2 though, in terms of the violence and the kind of politics of getting to the throne almost, wasn't there? Did you think there was a little bit of a Game of Thrones element vibe to it?
Yeah, I mean, there was always the scheming and behind closed doors. and especially Denzel Washington's agenda, let's call it, was very. I mean, he plays it so well that you always know. Even when he repeats himself, he says, "You are the instrument. Your rage is my instrument." He tells him about 3 times, and you're like, "Oh, is he trying to manipulate him?" And that's exactly what it does. It turns out it's not just. So it's all of that scheming and dealing behind closed doors is here, which is what apparently that's an accurate fact, wasn't it, for Rome? So
Yes,
for those
yes,
times,
yeah,
so
pretty much.
it's very welcomed. But yeah, what did you thought of Connie Nielsen, the mother? Did you like her?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make a return as well, very, very good, and yeah, just that role it would kind of streamline the film and the storyline quite well. So yeah, I would say yeah, fit the role very well, and yeah,
Indeed.
I wouldn't say Oscar-worthy performance at all, but it just made the film what it was. So yeah,
I think Denzel is going to go to the Oscars, but yeah,
I would say so.
overall, a very crowd-pleasing and definitely worth the ticket price.
Thank you very much for watching our review of Gladiator 2. If you wanted to watch a similar review and film by me and Alex, click here for Napoleon, which also has crazy battle sequences and all-out action. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.